there at the bottom of each one of the motions, where it says who was the who passed the motion, who seconded it. Additionally, Dusty, there was also another motion there that you brought up in regards to asking the Board of Health for further consideration before increasing fees on the bunkhouse inspections that you presented last week, and that motion isn't in there either.
Okay. So we'll work with Jacob on this one to make sure they're included.
And again, I only introduce it just to clean up the minutes. We're still going through the minutes, but just the format, I guess, of the motions, how they're presented.
For sure. Thank you, Anita. I appreciate that. You're absolutely spot on. So yeah, Jacob, if we could add in for, you tell me what's the proper way to include both the user fee motion and discussion and whereas that we included, whether we include, I don't want to go back and update October 27th, but mind you, they were discussed at that meeting. So if we can update them on that 27th meeting. That was, I emailed, yeah, that's we're talking about that motion. I emailed them through you. I can email it if you like again.
No problem. That'd be great. Thanks.
Thanks, sir. Okay. Any other discussion on the minutes from October 27th? Okay. Then I'll move into item 6, communications. The first item A would be the economic impact analysis for Chris and Trish. You guys have the floor.
So Dusty, can we just move that those minutes be approved as they are going to be fine-tuned a bit, or? Yeah,
if we can, yeah, let's fine-tune them, and then, but yeah, so we'll have a vote that we will fine-tune them if that's the proper, or they need to be updated if that's a proper procedure. And the minutes will be sent out as soon as possible with the updated user fee motion. If I can get a mover on that.
I'll move that, Dusty.
Okay, thank you, Nita. Do we need a seconder? I don't think so. Okay. So I guess so Jacob and I will work on that. I mean, it's very easy. I'll resend out to Jacob, add in there, and then Anita, would you like to see some cleaning up and a final of that? Is that what you'd like? Even though this has already been sent through, the information is not going to change, but we can make the motions very clean and clear. Is that what you're looking for?
Just, yeah, so that there is that some statement to see what we actually voted on in addition to the background information. And I'm good with that. I know we've already discussed it, so just to put it in a little bit different format.
Yeah, okay. I'll work with Jacob on that. Beautiful. Okay. If I can then open up communications, Mr. Garwood and Ms. Fournier, you have the floor.
Sure. So what we did is we put together a series of questions for a survey that went out to growers just last week. We don't have the results yet, but basically what we're looking to do is get a better understanding of the impact that COVID-19 had on the agriculture industry in the past year, and then asked what would help government actions in terms of their business recovery. And that we're kind of bringing into the economic recovery task force that I'm also sitting on. One of the questions was, if we did have a program by government to isolate, how much improvement would you have had? Then we go into the second section is on the requirements that are there for the upcoming year. So the new requirement, the main one, is that there needs to be a 2-meter distance between beds, but allowing bunk beds at least for this year. So we asked some questions about that as to what sort of impact that will have, and what would happen if the bunk beds were removed. And then also to see whether there's interest in a Norfolk-led isolation program, so we have better understanding of that before we attempt to put something together. And then the last part was just on the new federally proposed changes. So the federal government came out with proposed recommendations for accommodations, and there's quite extensive changes in those. And so we did is looked at some of the questions that are in that feedback piece that needs to be submitted by December 22nd. So we're hoping if we get enough of these back and we can see some similarities, that we'll be able to go back with feedback as a county or as groups of farmers that have some consistency amongst it. And one of the, there's a group of farmers that are talking about trying to get that unified voice. And one of them did some work on designing a 5-worker pod, and then that pod could be replicated. So he actually gave me some of his drawings and wanted some feedback on that. The hope is that that would work for smaller farmers and also larger farmers. So we've also asked for some feedback on that. So I think I put the date on there as of the end of October, maybe the 28th or so. And then we'll be able to get the results from that. I know there are farmers that are replying and doing that survey, because some of them have emailed me and said they have, or they've asked some questions, or they've asked for the federal proposed guidelines as well. Anything to add on that, Chris?
No, I think you've covered it. They have until the end of this week to complete, and so on Friday we will pull all the responses, do an aggregate, and then see what we are getting back from them.
So once this information is collected and it's sent in by this Friday, what's it, the 27th, who is looking at it, and what are the next steps going to be taken with it? Is it like who is responsible for then collecting this information and putting together as a report that's going to be then crafted beyond it, and where is that going?
So we used a survey program through the county so that it will help with the analysis of the results, because otherwise it could be pretty overwhelming. So yeah. I'm kind of playing it a bit by ear and see what we get out of that. And then I'll have a look at all the comments and things and try to put something together. Then I was thinking that we should maybe have a look at it as this board and then decide, you know, what do we do from there? Do we go to council and ask for some support that, well, one, we would have, you know, some clear understanding of the need for this program of isolation, what sort of funding might be needed for our area, and, you know, whether we're asking it of them or we're asking them to advocate on our behalf with other levels of government, whatever. I think it's good to have a unified message. And then the other thing would be trying to present this solution to government as to what agriculture might get behind in terms of these accommodation changes going forward.
Correct. Okay, good deal.
But it does need to be submitted to, the federal ones need to be submitted by December 22nd.
Yeah.
So when we set our next meeting date, we might want to keep that in mind.
Okay. Okay. Because while we're on this, there has not been a second OMAFRA task force. I started seeing promotion of the task force and the economic impact and COVID-19 force that I'm sitting on there. There's only been one meeting and I have not seen any reports, and I sent an email out to find out when the next meeting is, because obviously we all are aware that the push is on, but you know, I want to make sure that we can get as much communication up as possible, and these grassroots style are appreciated. So thank you, Trish and Chris.
You're welcome.
Yeah, let us know what we need and where it can go. I mean, the more eyes on this, the better. whether it's Toby, Ernie, and beyond, as well as council. So thank you. Any more comments for either Chris or Trish or the rest of the group on this one? Everyone's seen it, right? Everyone's received the email?
Everyone that's on that has offshore workers has, right. I believe. You know, we've got somewhat of a list out there. And then I think Chris sent it out to his contacts as well. So, and then I put in the bottom of that to please send it off to your fellow farmer colleagues. So hopefully, I mean, I don't have an exhaustive list, so I'm not sure.
Yep, that's fair. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Before moving on, any more comments on this? Okay. Yeah, we're in the process right now at Easy Grow of building another units. We've maxed out my farm here in time to build more on another location. And one thing that keeps coming up after looking at the federal, the potential is obviously the reduction of men or people per toilet, fridge, sink, and whatnot. And this brings up an old discussion and really brings in an MOE from years ago, trying to update the understanding of the 10,000 liters a day rule, because what will cause obviously a large cost increase and also a strain on all sides of farms from small to large to medium would be if there's a reduction of personnel per. Trish, can you tell me what's the proper? There's it's not we don't call them sinks and toilets. There's a proper term that we use just for all arching elements or something like that. I forget what. There's a proper term. Right. If anybody knows it. Anyways, long story short, the amount of people per farm is going to be reduced unless that 10,000 liters is updated to accommodate modern ag. So I don't know if this is a forum that the Ag Advisory Board would like to revisit that motion to to send through to hopefully council support. Mayor Chop.
Yeah, sorry, Dusty, you have me confused again a little bit. So you're concerned here about the septic capacity, right?
That's correct. So it's a septic capacity because of what they run the capacity on is a 10,000 liter a day rule per farm, and that ties directly with the max amount of workers that you can house on a single farm because of that septic.
Right. And your argument is that they're going to, by having to install additional bathrooms to meet these new requirements, that it's going to
reduce the amount of available men.
So my understanding when I asked about this is that, I mean, if you have 10 workers in one building and then you build a second building, I'm just giving a basic example here, and then you build a separate building and now you have 5 workers in each building, your volume is still the same. So it's not going to affect your septic capacity. It's not going to reduce the number of workers that you can have on that septic system. It's keeping it the same as you had. It's just that you're displacing them into additional facilities.
As long as that's understood, that that as we add more toilets, that it doesn't infringe on. Okay, well, because what they do is they, correct me if I'm wrong as well, and if they assume that a toilet goes through 2,000 liters a day, whether it's sitting there or not, if I have now more toilets, is that going to then?
I don't think it's a toilet calculation. I think it's a person calculation, right?
It's the reason, because like the max per men per farm was always tied with the 10,000 liters. So as long as that's certain that it is like a per person,
yeah, it's
if we add like 30 toilets
per that septic system. So you put more toilets, you have the same number of guys. It doesn't matter how many buildings you put them in or how many toilets. Okay. They're only pooping the same amount, right?
Right. Okay. Yep.
So that was my understanding, because I did make some inquiries into that. There was a meeting with Paul Prosick and stuff, and we had talked to Fritz afterwards, and that's my understanding.
Good deal. Thank you. Trish?
Could we just, like, is there a way to get that information kind of in writing that we could get that out to growers so that way they're not confused by that? Because I do know that septic systems do calculate in the number of toilets and things in a home. So if that's not going to be the case for the agricultural workers, it'd be great to have that clear so that the community would know, and we're not all individually asking, right? That way they're not being bombarded at the building department.
I believe it's in the code, but I can send Fritz a message and see if he can get you guys something.
That'd be huge. Thank you, Mayor. Because I'd like to then bring that up to the province as well, because it was a discussion point on the task force, was the on-farm septic and what that's gonna mean as the additional facilities are included. So if we can, if this is written in the provincial policy, that would be awesome to have and defined. Thank you. Okay, any other notes on this and beyond? Okay, thank you, Chris and Trish, for getting this out. We appreciate it. And we'll do another boost. To me, I'll chat with my networks as well to get more surveys in. Chris, I'm going to keep you on the hot seat for member recruitment. If you can take over for this, sir. How are we looking there?
Thanks. So we now have 4 applications in, and come January, we will be sending a report to in-camera report to council, and from there you'll have the members that are recommended to be a part of the board. So we now have at least 4, and I think that is what we were looking for. It would have been nice if we had even 1 more, but at least the first go around we got 0. Now we have 4 with the encouragement of members of the advisory board for folks to step up. So we are now on track to be able to make that recommendation in January.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other comments or questions about this member recruitment? Okay. Seeing none. I'm going to put, I've asked Anne to have a discussion as our resident cash cropper and grain farmer and commodities. Obviously, and she can speak to it much more than I can regarding carbon tax and the amount of money that's spent and taxed to both the grain farmers as well as the dryers this time of year are pumping 24 hours a day. And wondering if this is something for this board to have a discussion on and a conversation on, to see if we could try to rally support to send a letter through. But I'll stop there. And if you can have the floor to explain the carbon tax and how it's affecting your operations in your industry's operations.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the background is that we're in the second of a 4-year phase-in period for the federal carbon tax. Currently, ag is not exempt from it. I believe the greenhouse industry, a certain portion is, but for most of all agriculture, the fossil fuels that they're using is not exempt from being carbon taxed, and it's leading to significant cost of production on a lot of operations. In particular, grain farming, since it takes a lot of fuel to dry the grain, and I mean it's not limited to just grain farming. We've got livestock producers that need to heat and cool barns. Norfolk County has a lot of vegetables and stuff that have to be cooled somehow in coolers, right? So there's fuel going into that. But basically, it's an unnecessary charge on the agricultural community, and it's reducing margins on farm significantly. So I think the ask was, if this board was in support, maybe we could put together a motion, that farm fuels in agricultural production could be exempt from carbon tax policies. I mean, Norfolk in particular, like we look at what percentage of the county is treed, I bet you it's 30 to 40%. It's a huge number. So, I mean, we have carbon sequestration here, a lot of agricultural production. We don't have a lot of heavy industry that's causing a lot of pollution. So it's definitely a challenge. I believe the Ontario government is fighting to have it exempt, fighting the federal government. Everything's been put on the back burner now, basically because of COVID, but any support that we could send up the chain, I think, to either the provincial or federal government would be appreciated by farmers.
Mr. Dooney?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, and maybe through ourselves, through to Councillor Columbus, maybe he could give us some advice on the best way to proceed with that.
Yeah, Mike here. I did get some concerns about this from tobacco growers who received their bill in September, October, and 26% of their heat curing cost was actually carbon tax. So I can just imagine what it's going to cost to dry a bushel of corn or soybeans. And so out of a bill that was $5,800, $1,500 of it for that 1 month was carbon tax. So it is an item that's really going to affect the Norfolk County area for sure. So I would suggest that if you go through this, that you should get support from the Minister of Agriculture, Ernie Hardeman, and Toby Barrett, and Ministry of Environment, anybody that we can count on to raise this issue. I believe it's a federal government issue, so it also has to go through likely federal MPs right up to the Minister of Energy federally. So whoever we can get to listen to it and identify the impacts that this carbon tax is having on farm operations, because along with the COVID issues growers are facing, they're really debating whether to stay in agriculture, some of them. So it is serious, and some of them have not even received their last heating curing bills yet. So I can just imagine what some of the ginseng growers are going through that are curing their crop during this cold season for a 2-week period. Okay, that's my comments right now.
So if I could call Trish, how did the greenhouse industry or some component like Ann alluded to, how did they get around it, or how did they get exempt, Trish?
When we were still in greenhouse, there was no exemption for greenhouse.
Right.
If you had like an extreme amount of use, then you would get into this a different category. I don't think where we were buying credits. I don't know. I think that had a bit more of a phase in, but there was no exemption for it. I can check with Justine at OGVG and see whether they've made any progress on that, but I haven't seen anything come across that said that they did.
Okay. Mr. DeCarlos?
You're on mute, Anthony.
Sorry there. My fuel company called me when the carbon tax was getting started about 2 years ago, and they had a form that we could fill out. There's 2 forms. One was for greenhouse, to be exempt from the carbon tax that you get whenever they deliver propane, but you could give it to any natural gas or propane supplier. And then the other one was for dyed diesel. So if you fill that form out and gave it to them, like my dyed diesel is exempt from carbon tax.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I never saw that.
I don't know if I can still find it or not. But yeah, there's just, it's just a form on their website when we first really started doing it.
Ms. Ramirez?
Yeah. Yeah, so dye diesel for sure and clear diesel. You just fill out the form with your fuel company and they will exempt you. But it's not on propane or gas. I think it's only the greenhouse industry that is exempt.
Yes, it's only
all
for,
other industries have to pay for it.
you're right. I actually called them and asked about, because I grow my seedlings in the greenhouse. And I asked, can I get a prorated thing? And they pretty much said it has to be your entire consumption of that resource has to qualify.
Okay. So if I could, discussion, what is the direction we'd like to take? Obviously, would we like to put a letter and a motion together for council to discuss, or which direction would we like to go? To see if we can gain support alongside. I'm putting in a call with Diane Finley's office regarding, and I can add this onto as well and let her know. I have a call specifically regarding Trinidad and Tobago government, but I can see to add this on that agenda. Mr. Dooney.
Yeah, I think what Anne's asking is if we can pass this up to council for support, and I'd second Anne's ask there.
Yeah.
It's an important issue for agriculture in the area. Cost-wise, 25% of an additional tax against your heating bill is pretty significant. These guys that are trying stuff, corn, beans, tobacco. So yeah, I'd support that, and then also support ourselves as individuals, and maybe Dusty, you want to, if you're already making the call at the federal and provincial level, that report back on suggestions that they might have for us to tackle this matter.
So yeah, I know Doug Ford is all over this right now. Where and Anne, you alluded to it. Where are they in it right now? Is it an ongoing thing that Ford is going all the way in Ottawa, or where's that at?
I am not 100% sure. Like, I mean, Ontario had its own cap and trade program, and then the federal government came in with like basically a countrywide policy, right? And then I think Ontario and Alberta stepped up and is taking them to court. Where that is at, I have no clue, but it's definitely lost in the back burner right now with everything else going on.
Right.
If it would help, like, do you want me to draft a letter? And then have it circulated, and then like that could be used if council would approve it to being passed on and sent to the MPs and the MPPs.
I'd say so. When is the next Councillor Columbus and Mayor Chop? When is the next council meeting? Just so we have a timeline.
What it's in a couple of weeks, but Councillor Columbus, you could chime in. I don't really see any reason why I couldn't just send a letter from the office endorsing the support for it. If you needed something sooner rather than waiting until like a decision of council wouldn't be ratified until the 15th, I think is the last meeting.
Okay.
For the holidays. So if you can wait till the 15th, fine. If you can't wait till the 15th, if you want to just draft, it wouldn't be a motion then from council, but we could draft a letter on letterhead from the mayor's office. You guys draft it, and I can put it out for you. So that's your decision. If you want it done as a formal motion at council, would be on the 15th. If you just want, some support signed off on some letterhead, then we could do that ahead of time.
Okay. Well, it's a discussion for the board. Which direction would we like to go? I'm personally, the sooner the better is especially if it's going to carry the same weight. That's my vote or my idea. What do we all think on this one?
Dusty, Mike here. Can
yes,
you hear
sir.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, the mayor has suggested to get a letter off as soon as possible. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But I also think that you should have a motion here, have a couple whereases, and then that the whereas is for the reason, and then what you want out of it.
Mhm.
And I would think you'd want the Ontario Federation of Agriculture here, their support on site. So somebody should be contacting that representative, and the Norfolk Federation of Agriculture, of course.
Yep.
And then the Roma conference coming up in February, I believe, Rural Ontario Municipal Association. So I would think you'd want that presented at the Roma conference as well. And once you've got the motion put and the minutes come before council with the motion that you're going to pass, hopefully, it could go to Norfolk County Council, as the mayor has indicated. I think it said the 15th of December, something of that nature.
Okay.
I'm just looking on the OFA site, and they do have some information on here, and it looks like greenhouse was added as an exemption March 2019, and they do talk about grain fuel as well, but that it's not exempt at this point. But it might be worth the conversation with them as to what they've did, and have a better understanding where it's at.
Okay, so I can get a hold.
Yeah, I can,
Yes, and after you. Yep.
I sit on the Grain Farmers of Ontario board. I believe they sent a couple letters up, but nothing's been done. I mean, I can check in again on that, and then I can talk to the local OFA guys and see. I think they've sent many letters, but nothing more than that.
Okay. So then, yeah, if to do things correctly, after the comments from both the mayor and Councillor Columbus, we would like to add in a couple whereas for information with the motion for intent for Anne and Hayden and myself. Hayden, can I put you on the spot to make a micro task force to be getting this letter written on time?
All good.
Okay, good deal. So if I go to here, so I guess Jacob, if this is now, Anne, you correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm doing is I'm pulling our conversation we had. This is where I'm getting this from. But so whereas carbon tax is a major added expense for catch croppers using gas or propane for grain dryers, it is a big expense as well for livestock producers heating barns. Whereas, and then where would you like to go after this? That's a baseline.
Yeah, I guess my ask would be that all farm fuels used in agriculture production should be exempt from carbon tax policies. I guess, yeah, I want to encompass everything other than grain too, like ginseng and tobacco. So drying of all crops, heating of livestock barns, and then the cooling of anything that's perishable.
Okay.
Basically, there's no replacements for fossil fuels in modern agriculture right now. And really all carbon tax serves as is just reducing farm margins.
Go if you wanted to go a little bit more out there in your defense of it. I mean, you could start looking at how much land we have in Norfolk County that's covered in woodlots owned by NCC and so on, where virtually no property taxes, nominal property taxes are paid to the municipality on those properties. And really, there's this intermixing of agriculture here with sort of this environmental forestation and so on, that there has to be a little bit of a balance here. Like locally, you guys are giving back, right, to that environmental initiative. It's a little bit, I don't know, I think you could word it in a crafty way just to highlight that situation here.
What are your thoughts on that, Anne?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know the exact percentage, but I remember when like the wetlands, right? The significant wetlands came before council, and that came from the province, I believe, because there's a mandate that a certain percentage of the county needs to be treed, and basically we already met that requirement, so they didn't need to take any more land for provincially significant wetlands. I could dig back in that information to see,
I can try and find that. I believe it was a 20% minimum threshold. It was somewhere in that Norfolk blew by and achieved through the replanting and whatnot. But yeah, okay.
Sue Bugner at the county would be somebody that would have some information too on acreage that's, you know, covered in woodlots and so on. And that might be beneficial. Just to say, hey, like, here's how many acres of trees we've got planted out here, and here's.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Dusty.
Yes, sir.
You get something like, whereas somewhere in the order of 1/3 of Norfolk County is forested. It's
right.
Somewhere around 33%.
Okay. Great. Okay, Sue Bugner. Okay. I will do a follow-up with Sue Ann to see. I'll get that number hard packed for you in the formulation of this letter. Mr. Dooney.
Norfolk County website says 25% forest cover, and woodlot owners would be a good place to start.
Nice.
And I'd just as a talking point, I'd also mention that we're the largest producer of tart cherries in this area, and apple orchard comes second to per acreage total production per area. If you look at Norfolk County, we're second to Georgian Bay as well. So there's a lot of trees there that are growing and doing their thing for climate.
Right. Okay. And if I could, Anne, what sort of timeline do we want to give ourselves, and does the board want to give us to formulate this letter to approve by end of the week? Ms. Buhner?
Yeah, additionally, Norfolk has a large presence with the ALICE program, the Tallgrass Prairie sequester carbon as well. So many farmers are involved in that program. I'm not sure of the number of them, but we're all doing our part. The ones that have planted these prairie grasses, they're supposed to be many times more efficient than trees at sequestering carbon. So again, you know, farmers are contributing to our own consumption, and then we're being taxed on top of that.
Yeah, that's fair. Giving up land and to bring it back and being taxed on top. Yep, that's a really good point.
So I could draft a letter probably by the end of the week. Like, or do you want a motion for the minutes today? Is that?
Yeah. What are we looking for? If I think if we have a base motion that is just strictly that. Actually, no. Anita, if I could deflect off of you, bounce off of you, if we formulate a letter and internally give ourselves a week, then if the board has the understanding that by Friday or Monday, November the 30th, we have a letter to circulate around for all approval, is that enough, or would we like to see a formal motion in there in the event that we're not technically going to council because we're building this letter instead and then with that they were going to sign off on? Anita?
So I'm not 100% on proper procedure here neither, but we're just gathering the information, and maybe that letter should be circulated and then supported by the Ag Advisory Board. We may see some things that we don't agree with, and therefore we would maybe vote against sending that or something, but it's something that I'm very confident that Anne, with your help and Hayden's help, can put that letter together. Be nice for everybody to take a look at it quickly and then offer support or not support, and whether that has to be in an email motion or however it can be dealt with.
So let's do that. If everyone's good with that, that way we're not trying to hammer it out like immediately right now, because there's a lot of nuances, especially in the last minute between Alice and whatnot. Gives us 5 or 6 working days to hammer it out, and then we'll send it out to the for the board for discussion and approval if that works. But I do appreciate council and the mayor working with this letter and getting it in a timely manner. So we appreciate that. Is everyone in agreement with that? I should say, is there anyone opposed to that form? Seeing none, we have a micro task force. This is gonna be fun. All right, we're gonna get this going. So so Anne, Hayden, and myself will work offline in that thread that we have going currently, and we can get formulating a letter, and we'll give ourselves the 30th letter to send out to the board for viewing. Beautiful. Any other comments on that? Okay. I have way too many things open right now. I believe next is our action tracking table. Where would you be? Jacob sent it out. There we go. Okay. All right. Well, we did discuss the first item being on-farm septic. We have already touched on that already today. Now this is so the last point there was about a communication strategy going forward, and there has been an ask by the Ag Advisory Board to find in writing where it is in fact regarding the 10,000 liter. And that way the communication for both here for discussions with Ag Advisory Board and Norfolk County Council, as well as OMAFRA and federal, so we can have that understanding as to the nuances between additional toilets and making sure that that doesn't have a hindrance on man or on people per farm. Is everyone good with that? So Jacob, if we could add a line item that we are looking for confirmation from the provincial plan.
Yes, no problem.
Perfect. Okay. Any other comments on that? Okay, seeing none. Road entrance permits. So October 2020, Mr. Robinson will follow up with Jason Godby for clarification on the road entrance, specifically that additional road permits would be allowed at like on a case-by-case basis. Do we have that in writing, Jacob?
Yes, I believe I forwarded an email on behalf of Jason that came a couple of weeks ago that sort of summarized his position.
Okay.
I can try and find that if you want.
We can
come back.
Nope, that's perfect. As long as that's beautiful, and I believe it was in support, correct?
Don't hold me to it, but I believe you are correct.
Okay. Yes. That's good. Okay.
If you want to move on to the next one, I can bring it up while you're chatting about the next item.
Okay. Thank you kindly. Okay. So. Okay. Import soil to Norfolk County. Unfortunate. Okay, so Dusty to follow up with bylaw regarding the importation of soil. That is still on my to-do. I apologize, everyone. Writing that down. Soil. Okay. Miss Mayor or Madam Mayor, and as well Councillor Columbus, who specifically should I be reaching out to at bylaw? Is there a head for bylaw that could be that has some excess capacity on their plate to handle a conversation with us regarding importation of soil?
I would just go right to Jim Milson. So it'll be Jim.Milson at norfolkcounty.ca. He's our new head of bylaw.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you kindly. Beautiful. Okay. Any other comments on that? Seeing none. Lot relocation. Oh,
Dusty,
sorry.
I had a comment.
Yes, Nina.
Nick Kinkle from Omafra.
Yeah.
I believe it was quite some time ago when he was attending our meetings, and
Yeah.
we haven't been inviting him. But he might have some background information, whether the province, what they allow. But certainly the risk of contaminating soils is great with this, but I'm not sure where Omafra's at, and Nick Kinkle would be the contact there.
Okay. So then maybe for our year-end meeting in December, I'll have some information back from Jim Milson, and we'll get Nick back online. That'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
through Nick, you could probably contact resources through the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and also Ministry of Environment. Perhaps he can do some research there.
Yep.
I would think that other municipalities are having the same issue as Norfolk is.
Okay.
Hey, Dusty?
Yes, sir.
Nick is actually part of our Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board, and we're having a meeting tonight, so I can mention this to him tonight.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. So we'll just get him in the loop for when we send out what week or what 10-day period we're looking for a meeting, if he can offer some suggestions for his availability.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And then Jacob, while you're talking to him, I'll send Nick an email. Could you, in passing, let him know that I'll be trying to reach out to him, and if we could have a phone call in the next week or so about obviously soil and then septic and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Dusty.
Yes, sir.
I know that when I was in Haldeman, we had the same problem, and we went through an extensive process, and there is a bylaw in Haldeman for bringing outside soil to the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
How easy or difficult would it be to find what Haldeman's bylaw would be regarding this?
It shouldn't be that difficult. I think the gentleman is still there.
Okay, good deal. Chris, could I? Yes, sir.
I would think that through Jim Milson, he could easily research that bylaw that they have.
Okay, good deal. All right, then I'll get on the horn with Mr. Milson very soon. Okay. Any other comments on that? Seeing none. Lot relocation. So this has obviously been ongoing since now we're entering our second and I'm sure third year with this. I did give witness and testimony for this. I was asked to speak on it as the Ag Advisory Board Chair for a lot relocation, specifically for Norfolk Cherry. A ruling was handed out, but I have to go through it. But effectively, it continues, but it's all the way up the province, and I believe that's where it stands. Just want to give everyone an update. The last Friday, I did sit in and give a 20-minute discussion and testimony for this appeal. Yes. So, long story short, if the fight, not the fight, but the discussion continues. So if anyone is interested in this and whatnot, continue to send emails and letters to Toby's office. Even though that the review closed on the 21st of October, way back when. But the more information that he receives, obviously the better, specifically with farmers understanding their farms the best, and knowing that we try to not create loopholes, to create many subdivisions across Norfolk County in our farming scape, but as well make sure that the prime ag land that is best for growing stays that. Mayor Chop.
Yeah, thanks, Dusty. I'm just wondering in your communications with Toby if maybe you might be able to get a better answer out of him or unanswer, period, as to why he and Minister Hardeman did not support the lot swap and why they were the ones that requested MMAH to file the appeal on this, particularly when we're seeing lot swaps in Minister Hardeman's backyard in Oxford County that went unchallenged. So
Right.
I would just really be interested from you guys, from the farmers, asking Toby what his opposition was to this and why they directed Minister Clark to file this appeal.
Okay. No, that's a very fair point. I was just as confused as you were as to why he was against it. So, and in your conversations with them, was there any inkling as to why? Now, I realize that's a redundant question because you're asking me to ask him why, but I'm just confused. Trish, if I could put you on, Trish, has this ever come up with your conversations with Bobby Joe?
Bobby I'd have to look back in the notes because I don't remember completely, but I know at the point that I talked to her, and that was probably a year ago, it had to do with another department, and I think there's no mechanism to force that other lot to close, and that was the problem. And somebody went and created a second lot. It was supposed to be the other one closed, and then they didn't close it. And so they need some other department in the government, and I have to look to see what it is to create a mechanism for that to close. Otherwise, we have a risk of there being additional lots created.
So that is true that there is a challenge with that. That is under the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. But again, it's not, number one, it's not an insurmountable challenge. And the second component is the fact that, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen, especially you, Dusty, all the other lot swaps that had been through OMB challenges previously and were adopted, or ones that never went challenged, like I said, even in Ernie's own backyard. At the end of the day, you guys may not know, but this ultimately was the story behind the shit sandwich with Minister Clark, and found out that they were appealing the lot swap. It just blew my mind because the province is effectively increasing their stock of protected prime ag land, not decrease, not even remaining constant in this case. They're actually increasing it. So, I went through the history of Norfolk County and, Nanticoke closing and you guys not getting, your fair share of the tobacco money from the province, et cetera, things over the years. And, to where we are now with the water issues we're having and so on. And I said to them, I said, listen, I said, this is where I don't understand. Like, we have a situation here where we're actually increasing the stock of protected prime ag land for the province. And the minister looked at me, I always had a good relationship with him. And he said, no, I completely agree with you. It makes perfect common sense. And I said, well, Minister Clark, if it makes perfect common sense, then why, when this is the shit sandwich that I'm dealing with in Norfolk County, why would you guys waste our time appealing something that, in your words, makes perfect common sense? And his exact quote, and Brett can tell you because I called Brett immediately after I walked out of that meeting, was that when one of his brothers asked him to appeal, he has to appeal. And I said again, I looked at him, and Tom Michelle was there as well, and I said, one of your brothers, like what? And he says, one of my brother ministers. And at that point I just said thanks, and that was basically the end of the meeting. So it was directed, while Bobby Ann may say that it was a plotting issue with MMAH, that's not at all the case. It was Toby and Ernie that had asked for that appeal to be filed.
Okay. Then well, thank you for that clarification, Madam Mayor.
I think it's just important, Dusty, to understand. I mean, these guys are out there, they're the ones supposed to be looking after the farmers and so on. Whether there was an ulterior motive with this or not, I would like to know, why. And again, I can't get the answer out, but maybe you guys, as the Ag Advisory Board, in your positions, why would you, if you're not even challenging lot swaps in Oxford County, why are you doing this here? Because does that mean, are we going to expect this again if we do this again? Because
Right.
ultimately we want to get it in our official plan, right? Like what you guys had asked for in years past.
Right. Okay. Councillor Columbus, were you saying something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I had a long conversation about this, the Norfolk Cherry lot swap with Brett on Saturday. And he indicated to me that basically he won this on a technicality because the municipal affairs workers didn't do all their homework in the consideration of this. And he indicated to me that there's a good chance that it could be appealed again by municipal affairs, this decision. There's so many days that it has to be done by, so it may not be over yet, is what he told me.
Oh, I don't think it is over. They're very likely to appeal it, certainly. But that's all the more reason why to keep the pressure on Toby and Ernie now, and trying to understand what their opposition is to this, and not allowing them to pass the buck to municipal affairs and housing.
Okay. As a board, then, is this something? The best approach is I'm trying to call. Well, I can try to call, get a call in with Bobby. Is it Trish and Mayor Chop? Is it Bobby Ann or Bobby Joe? I want to make sure I call her by the right name.
It's Bobby Ann.
Bobby
Okay,
Ann.
perfect. So is best right now to go informal, and Trish, can you reach out to Bobby Ann? And I don't know how often you're speaking with her on a flurry of issues, or should we try to get a letter while alongside building the carbon tax letter, try to build a letter as well for the board to look at and chew on to send up to the different offices? Mr. Dooney?
Oh.
Yeah,
I can jump into Tester and you get a second.
Right. Sorry, Ms. Mayor.
could the approach be that we ask Toby for written support?
Took the words right out of my mouth, Hayden. You got it.
Yep.
Yeah. I would say let's ask him what the opposition is and see if we can clear that, right? So
Yep.
what are his particular points of opposition, and then maybe we can figure out a way around that.
Okay.
Or if they passed the buck last time, Trish, and said that if Bobby Ann tried to say it was municipal affairs and housing, maybe the approach instead is to kind of, remain sort of oblivious to that and say, hey, well, if it's municipal affairs and housing that you're saying has the issue, I'm assuming then that you support our farmers in the lot swap. So, can we get a letter of support from you, our local MPP?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, I'm writing this down. Okay. I will reach out to Toby's office because the same conversation with Trinidad that I'm going to be hoping to have with Diane Finley, I would also like to have the communication sent through for Ernie's office and Toby's office. So I'll piggyback the same agendas and see if we can get a letter of support from Toby or understand, or let's just getting it right, like the mayor said, supporting if in fact it's another department's issue. Can we get your support? Ms. Buhner?
Yeah, I agree with the mayor. Not asking why he opposed or for, just asking for a letter of support. Right. The Ag Advisory Board has had a motion in the past. It's got to be in the minutes there somewhere, but as our representative locally and involved in agriculture, whether he could provide a letter of support, clean and simple.
Yep. Okay. Jacob, please add that to the lot relocation item that for October, that Delsey will be looking for a letter of support from Toby's office. Any other discussion on lot relocation? Okay, Seeing none. Can we, I don't know. I'll defer this to both the mayor, if I could, and Councillor Columbus. Is there any need for this any longer? I think council is well informed and understanding of Norfolk agriculture. Can we just wipe this off the board, or did both of you see benefit in a snapshot of Norfolk Ag?
I think.
Well, Dusty, I'm thinking that if Municipal Affairs does appeal it, it's probably an ongoing issue, and I think we should wait at least till we get Toby's letter.
Okay.
Doesn't hurt to leave it on here for one more meeting.
No, I meant the new council primer. Not that we're going to keep lot relocation on there. I'm talking about the new council primer.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Dusty, I think I think everybody understands ag in Norfolk County, and I think we've had a lot going on lately, so I think it's best to just move forward.
Is the board okay with this? Any opposed? From the removal of the new council primer from the tracking table.
Here, my suggestion would be, why don't you, start a new process with the Ag Advisory Board and just do an annual update to council. Once a year, come forward and just talk about the activities from the year prior. Would
you see benefit in receiving that in December or returning after the Christmas break?
Just come back in the new year. That's fine. Okay. And then do the report, do it as a report on 2020.
Okay.
And then make it an annual thing that in January or February or whatever, you report on the year prior.
Mm-hmm. Deal. So Jacob, can we update the primer to then be considered an annual overview submitted from the board and the chair, please? I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Ms. Mayor. Ms. Fournier?
My suggestion would be to not only discuss the activities of the prior year, but what we see as upcoming as issues on the future year, right? Then that way we're being proactive.
Yep. Doing the whiplash, going back and then going forward. Okay.
Yep.
100%. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. The wonderful Norfolk County Road 45 bridge, the Bailey Bridge. There was updating to come. I believe there was some issues as to where the gapping in the pausing was between Norfolk County and the province. Councillor Columbus and Madam Mayor, do you have any updates on the Bailey Bridge?
So the only update that I have, we did a presentation on it again for AMO, is that the new rules from the Ford government, I believe, are in place now, where there wouldn't have even been an environmental assessment required on that bridge. So what we were told in the meeting was that the class 2 orders that were submitted basically would be rendered obsolete at this point because the legislation has changed.
Okay. So yes, sir.
This still is a huge issue in that particular area.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's what kind of bridge it is besides the point, I guess, right now. But the residents in that area are driving long distances to reach to their farm across the big creek. And I've been getting calls regularly from certain individuals who want that bridge in place, whether it doesn't matter what it is, they just want to be able to access it. Mm-hmm. Is their concern, because it's costing them a lot of time and money going the distance they have to go. In some cases, 8.5 kilometers. So right. As long as we can move this project along, the better.
Mr. Dooney, comments?
Yeah, Jason Burgess was following up on this. He gave us a bit of a report and some feedback on it to say where it lay. And where it lay was with the Ontario government. some way, shape, or form, and there was some confusion at their end, and he was waiting for a response back. Maybe he's got that response.
Okay.
Sorry, through
Mayor. Yep.
the chair. Maybe what we could do is have Jacob reach out to Mr. Burgess and just see what the status was, because I think he was the one that was waiting for somebody to get back to him on it.
Okay. Okay. If we could add that line item in then for the timeline, Jacob, and if we could task you, please.
And just, and my memory, correct me if I'm wrong on this, anyone, but my memory was it was a real simple trigger that had to happen, and it had been made really complicated because there was one person not talking to the other at the provincial level.
Okay.
Okay, can I jump in there again? The width requirements that you guys had for modern ag equipment, what is that like? What is that covering? Is that you know, a combine? Is that what?
It's the width of a combine without a head on, and we're gauging that the width of the combine would be the largest implement to go over and travel over, and all implements would be narrower than that. But that is there's without a head on, because they would be trailering. Because then if it was a head on, Trish, you could probably or anybody else that grows cash crops, then you could be ridiculous.
Okay, so is there any leeway on that number at all?
I mean, if that would help getting a bridge going through, we could open up that discussion again for sure. Now, are you talking about reduction of drastic or a few feet, Madam Mayor?
I'll have to talk to my coffee's just kicking in. I'm sorry. I just remember now that one of the other conversations, one of the challenges we were starting to see was the width of the bridge. You start to get back into, because of the serious width, it's going to be, I think, back to a 2-lane, which causes a different, back to the EA challenge. I don't know. I'll get some more details for you, but I think one of the things that, you know, if it's about getting a bridge moving forward, that, okay, if it's a combine, it might have to go around, but if it's, you know, general farm equipment, if it could go over the bridge, and if that's something that could speed it up, again, you know, if it's more important to get this bridge done and moving forward, you know, as opposed to, I mean, the holdup all this time has been the class order that was placed on it, right?
Right.
That was in Norfolk County. We had to wait for that conclusion.
Right.
Which technically we've never actually had, but now there's been the change in legislation. So think about, I think maybe to put that on for the next agenda, and think about whether or not we would be able to reduce that and by how much. And I'll get the dimensions for you before then of what it would need to be kind of reduced to keep it within that limit.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Dooney, your hand's up.
Yeah, Dusty, my recollection on it was there was a discussion, this was a long time ago, between having a 2-lane and a 1-lane, and then it had been, it had flip-flopped a couple of times at council as well for the approval process. And we were basically just stating the position, hey, didn't matter to the ag, and the discussions that we had, didn't matter to the agricultural community as far as we were aware, and the Ag Advisory Board's position was, hey, it doesn't matter whether it's a 1-lane or a 2-lane, whatever works, but could we make it wide enough so that modern day agricultural equipment could go through? And I believe that there was a 30-foot dimension there, and that came from other one-way bridges that were in Norfolk County. Yeah, at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is that there's a bridge going through, and it was just basically we were passing on an opinion on it. It wasn't anything that needed to, I guess, involve us for final approval. Or like we weren't trying to get involved in the approval process, just to make comment that it needed to be wide enough for large equipment to go across.
Right, right.
Mr. Chair, just to comment, way back, the former council, not the council that's in term right at this point, put forth a study to have a 2-lane bridge designed and engineered, and there was $120,000 already spent of Public Works taxpayers' money to construct a 2-lane concrete bridge.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, that's well. At the end of the day, I think it's the priority is, like we're all saying, let's try to get a bridge, and let's get the right bridge, but let's get a bridge first and foremost. and that's a priority. So I look forward to seeing what is now, Madam Mayor, if I understand correctly, you're going to let me know what the largest available bridge that can be constructed without triggering another classification in another study. Is that correct?
That was to me, Dusty. If that was to me, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you kindly. So, and then I farm on that road, and I know who there's some farmers directly affected by it, so I can reach out to those people and see, get some further input from them before our next meeting and whatnot. So I will tack that on. Okay. Any other comments on this? Seeing none. Moving on to the AAB questionnaire. The responses were forwarded to the health unit, and we were waiting for a response from the health unit in October. I know since then there has been some dealings and information that has been sent out from the health unit. But if I could ask Ms. Fournier, Trish, and Mr. Dooney to speak on this. Just I want to make sure our timelines and all the information that has been sent out is correct, and you guys have been spearheading this one.
Are you talking about the questions that we asked of the health unit just for clarity and that went out to the farmers? Because
I believe that is that one. Is that
okay.
correct?
Yeah, that went out quite a while ago, just to give them some clarity on things. And we did have a discussion to see whether the health unit was open to some other divisions, right? Like welding curtains and whatnot. But I don't believe that they were.
No. Hayden, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. And I think Chris is still on the line. Clarification, Chris. Originally, when we sent the request out for those questions, it went through your ag list as well, ag distribution list. Did those responses from the health unit go out through that list as well? I know it got sent out through some contact lists that Trish had, but I didn't know if you'd managed to forward out those questions and answer sheets as well from the health unit.
I had requested, I was asking of Jacob whether or not they came back. I was told that there was something to be finalized with them or something. Through my distribution, just to let you know, we cannot do attachments. It has to be in the body of the email because of the software that we're using. So, but if it's ready and it's not an attachment and you want me to send it through our email channel again, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, my primary reason for asking was just to make sure that it had got out to all the people that originally gave input to it. So is it possible to copy and paste out of the PDF into a body of the email and send those responses out?
Yeah, I'd have to do a little bit of editing and so on, because when you take it from a PDF, it kind of gets screwed up. But absolutely, I could use the PDF and rework it and then send it out.
Okay.
So so if Jacob has it, then Jacob can just send it along to me and I can get it out even today.
Perfect. Jacob, do you have this?
I'm just checking in my email at the moment.
Okay, good deal. All right.
I'll forward it on to you, Chris.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, any more comments on the questionnaire? Seeing none, our tree bylaw. That effectively a new bylaw should be drafted to accommodate modern ag practices. And as of October 2020, we were waiting for council determination. Councillor and Madam Mayor, has this gone onto a council agenda?
Dusty, Mr. Chair, I certainly haven't heard much about this for the last several months, so perhaps the mayor knows where it's at. I don't know.
Dusty, honestly, I think that our staff is just, they're buried right now. They're
Yeah,
into
that's fair.
budget time at the moment. We have some major infrastructure crises across the county. We have public health that we've hired, in the process of trying to hire 22 additional people into there. We've got outbreaks happening, all over the place. Like it's, I don't think that this, to be honest, I mean, I was the one that brought it forward, obviously, with Brett and so on. So I'm keen, especially after the endless abuse I took on it, to see it come together. But I just don't know that now is the time.
Nope.
To see this kind of coming together.
Yep.
There was a guy, I can't think of his name now. I'm just drawing a blank. He was really interesting, and Brett would know him. He came down from London to meet me right after we had all of that happen at council. And he told me that he is the only, I can't even think of what the name would be now for the tree. He's often called as a witness to testify at various hearings and stuff. Because I think he's the only guy of whatever his position is that he doesn't actually work for a municipality. And he was quite interesting because he really saw both sort of sides of the coin. Like he totally agreed. He said he'd followed along with Norfolk County's bylaw for years. And he really believed that there needed to be changes there. Maybe some he thought were, some of the pieces that Brett had in his proposed bylaw, I thought, that might maybe be moving the needle too far. So, somebody like him, I thought would be great to bring in to do this, because it's not Norfolk County staff leading it. And then they could operate as sort of a mediator between, the hardcore on the one side and the farmers on the other side. And so I'll get his name for you. And then maybe that might be, maybe then there's an appetite to kind of push that through at council. If you said, hey, we would like to have an independent party, kind of doing this, the public consultations and so on, as opposed to Norfolk County staff. And I think ultimately you might get to a better result then, just based on how everything unfolded when we did try to move this forward last time.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Yes. Hayden?
Yeah, and I believe that was a provincial forester qualification. There's not very many people around with it.
Okay. So yeah, we'll get that fella's name and see if we can have a discussion with him, and see if that and first and foremost, we understand completely there's a flurry of things going on, and maybe a tree bylaw is not first rank priority. But whatever we can do in the background to snuff up the motion and have great information for when the tides do go down, we can work on that. Thank you. Any other comments on tree bylaw? Seeing none. Jacob, has there been a climate change committee meeting since our last meeting?
No, there has not.
Okay. And then just to confirm, we are receiving our minutes. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Just gonna pull this back up. Okay. Any other comments on the action tracking table? I appreciate everyone being here. So we got through that meet. Sorry. Any business arising in other business that we'd like to discuss? Mr. Dooney.
Hey, once we get those minutes straightened up and the motions from last week, Deb, and everybody's got buy-in, I know you went and presented them at the Board of Health meeting. I would ask that if Madam Mayor and Councillor Columbus will be able to review those at the next council meeting, to just get some feedback on them, please.
Yeah, we'll look after that. Make sure that they are before the Board of Health.
Well, they've already been before the Board of Health, so I think you're going to have to take them to council, Mike.
They just need, as we discussed, they need tidying up is what, I know they've been before the Board of Health now, but they need some tidying up. So I think that's the proper way to proceed.
Okay. As long as, yeah, as long as we'll do 100%. We'll get them cleaned up and tidied up, and I'll work with Jacob and Hayden and whatnot to get them to that snuff. And as long as and the motions have been before the Board of Health, so that's great. And then is there in lighting, so then comment back on them? When has that happened at that Board of Health? Is that correct, Mayor?
Well, I guess I'm just be frank, if somebody wanted to comment on them at the Board of Health following the deputations, one would have expected comments following them at the Board of Health following the deputations. And so there wasn't comment from the counselors back at that point. Within the procedural rule, you can't present a second time on the same issue, right? You've come before, you've made the presentation. Now, where you guys, there is an second opportunity as a result of the way in which this was done. When your minutes come before council, of course, anybody can choose to, pull any of the advisory board meeting minutes and, discuss them at that time. So you are, by virtue of the way that this was done, where you came forward until you'd actually approved your minutes and so on at the health board meeting, you are kind of, I don't know, I guess having a second kick at the can, if you will, with it. I don't know, I think there certainly is some discussion to be had on, the hotel plan, but I think, again, to speak frankly, you can see the resource draws that this isn't like last year when we first started out, right? Everything was shut down. We had all of our staff available to us from all departments. And, now we're in a very different situation where we have, arenas open and so on and so forth. And county business is kind of having to carry on. So, that is the biggest piece where, you'll see in British Columbia, that hotel program was, that's managed by the BC government. And, I think this is where, as the ag community coming together, I'm not sure that there can be a greater burden even still placed on, like, the taxpayers of Norfolk County, have spent a lot on the farming program through, managing both the outbreaks, managing, regardless of whether you agree with it or not, the taxpayers have still also carried the burden, not just the farmers, with the Shanker Section 22 order and so on. So, I think to say that we're going to hire additional people now to run the hotel quarantine program, I don't see that happening. I could be wrong. I'm just one vote on there. But what I think needs to happen is the ag board needs to come together strongly. We do have Toby, here and as the parliamentary assistant to say, we either need the province to step up and do this, or, who knows what could happen now that they're starting to introduce this rapid testing between now and next March. I mean, that's not for Norfolk County to decide. So if the feds come up with a different plan there, of course, that will help everybody out immensely. But failing that, the province to step up and do this, and then say to these guys, hey, if the province isn't going to step up and do this, then, we need funding to be able to hire somebody at Norfolk County to be able to do this, because, we understand we can't put that burden on the rest of the taxpayers. But the challenge is, I look at posts that are made from Toby and Bobby Ann, and a lot of it, even a lot of the stuff she posts, of course, is all like anti, COVID, and it's not really a thing in government, which sort of boggles my mind because it's her government making the rules. But at the same time, whether you can either keep fighting with this Section 22 order with Shanker, or we can just all accept that there's a divisional court ruling. You're not going to change it. You're not going to change him. We can't fire the medical officer of health. That's not going to happen. And so, what is the next best thing that we can do? And the next best thing we can do is to put the pressure on the province hard and say, stop worrying about what Shanker did or didn't do, because we can't change that. What we're worried about is the things that you can change. And what you can do is you now can manage a quarantine program in the exact same way as the other provinces. And same thing, with all due respect, the motion to, get the taxpayers to fund the hotel, to fund the burden that farmers have faced as a result of Shanker's order. I mean, that will never happen. Again, I'm just one vote, and so I could be totally wrong, but you will have, you have people right now, a third of businesses are expected to close. You have people that are on fixed incomes that, or losing their jobs and losing their homes. Like, there is only so much that people can take. And I understand the challenges you face, but this is where, we need to work together to go to the province to get that money. It's not the taxpayers of Norfolk County that should be funding it. Yes, it's Shanker's order. Yes, he's local, but he is also appointed by the province. So, I think that's just my 2 cents on it. We need to hit at Toby and Ernie's office harder and say, we can't help Shanker. You have a divisional court ruling provincially that's come down. He was within his rights. Okay, that's fine. The guy's going to do this. But, as a result, now we need you to back us up, and we're calling on you for your support. They're the ones with the purse.
Right. Mr. Dooney, thoughts?
Yeah, all good comments. I'm just to simplify, I guess the reason that I put the couple of motions there on the floor last week was just to get some clarity and some closure. We've been asked on the hotel program as the Ag Advisory Board to put a position in there. So instead of us talking about it a lot, we've made that very clear. What I thought was a very clear motion on the hotel accommodations, and I think just acknowledgement from council that, hey, we've been asked to provide the information, and yes, we provided the Ag Advisory Board's position on it. Something as simple as that would give it some closure. Section 22 order, we've asked for cost recovery locally here because it is a local cost. Our neighbors don't have it. And then, hey, how can we support that? If there's some ideas there where we should be talking to the province, and how can the Ag Advisory be of service to council on that, or to the Board of Health? I know it kind of gets grayed out there, and this is a difficult thing because we're talking to, effectively, we're responsible to report to council here, but we're also talking to the Board of Health at the same time on these matters related to decisions made by the medical officer of health. But could we get some direction from council as to how we could support cost recovery for the increased cost of the Section 22? Because quite frankly, we've got the same problem when we go to the province with it at the moment. They're going to tell us it's a local order and that we need to be talking to our local representatives on the matter. And then the increased cost on inspections, just to get some closure there. Dusty, you presented these 3 motions on the increased cost of inspections. I think where the Board of Health got to with that is there's a deferral. There was a motion passed to defer that until budget time and then have another conversation on it, which I think gives that enough closure there. There was definitely consideration for that one there and some closure that happened at the Board of Health meeting.
Okay, to be fair, if I could just jump in. So yes, the province is going to say it's a local matter. Of course, everybody wants to pass the buck back. What we just raised taxes by last year, while at the same time slashing services that nobody was excited about. We're not into a much better situation this year. There is no money in Norfolk County to fund a hotel program or pay for the hotels of migrant workers as a result of Shanker's Section 22 order. And so, that's never going to happen. People can't afford to do that. And so, I think that we have to work together to push back on the province, because at the end of the day, when I wrote letters of support and for the migrant worker program to have that exemption under the rules, remember, the argument was food production and security for all Canadians, for all Ontarians. It's not just Norfolk County. And yes, we have a medical officer that put in some rules, but there are medical officers of health in other regions that have also put in their own rules. And look at next year. Unless the feds come down and change something, you guys will be allowed to have bunk beds, and farmers in Niagara and farmers in Brant will not be allowed to have bunk beds. So it's not cut and dry that, you know, Shanker's rule has caused these costs, and everybody's going to start evaluating things differently. That is why we keep saying the province needs to take over the program, and the province needs to fund it for you guys.
Was there an update from Niagara that if they cannot accommodate single beds, that they're allowed to use bunk beds? Did that just come through? Can somebody confirm that?
I'm not sure on the latest update. I haven't talked to Shanker about that part. There was a call with the feds recently that I was on with him. It was quite, you know, that was where they had a number of those recommendations and so on that were discussed. You know, I tried to advocate pretty hard that, listen, like any changes that you make, you know, you can expect that these changes are implemented this coming year. You know, that there's going to need to be some time to grandfather in, and like, we don't have, if you say tomorrow, you know, bunk beds aren't allowed for this upcoming season, we don't have that capacity for our farmers.
No, and I that is communication that I have received from the OMAFRA and talks with guys at the Horde Council and whatnot, is that the government isn't about to say 2021 no bunk beds. And I see Trish's hands up and whatnot, but I'm fairly confident that they're not going to be pulling that. Trish?
I was going to say, this is part of the reason why we're doing the survey, is to collect all of this information. And one of the questions was, how long are you going to need to take all these changes into consideration and do it? And there was a section in there for comment. So I would think that, you know, this is all the information we're going to collect, and then we're going to decide what we're going to do about it, right? So these are argument points that the county doesn't have the money to do this sort of program. This is what the impact of not having the program was this year. This is what the impact is going to be next year. This is what the impact of no bunk beds, et cetera. We'll have all that data. And then I think we can build a stronger argument and then go with it accordingly.
That's great. It's very timely. Mr. Dooney?
So just from the perspective of the increased cost of Section 22 and Norfolk County not being able to support that, there's also a lot of growers that are saying the same thing, growers and farmers. So I think just to get some closure on that one, hey, could there be some acknowledgement from council to the farming community that yes, we understand that there's increased costs from the Section 22 order, and that there isn't a funding base there locally, and this is how we could best proceed and support the agricultural community, and here's what we've already done. And then on the hotel room one, yes, we've given you all the information that you requested from us, because again, that was an ask from Mr. Burgess.
Well, I think that it has been very clear from council and from the Board of Health that they have acknowledged the economic impact that it has had on you guys as a result of Shanker's Section 22 order. I think we probably spent about 20 hours literally going around and around and around the Board of Health table on this, specifically with, you know, the economic interests of the farmer being forefront at the table. And again, there is no ability to be able to, you know, change Shanker's order. And so I'm not sure what to me, this is just creating further animosity. I mean, the order is there. Happen. There isn't the money. You know what our financial position is and what we've been facing. There isn't the money there to cut checks to farmers locally. We're even getting, you know, financial support from the province to be able to afford to buy, you know, PPE for, you know, our EMS staff and, you know, Norview and our public health staff and so on. Like, we're getting funding from the province to be able to do these things. So, you know, we don't have the money to cut checks to farmers. But, you know, if again, somebody can bring that forward, and I could be wrong. To me, this is not, I think it's very clear that council and the Board of Health has supported the farmers, but that doesn't mean that they can change his order. And, you know, I think we need to move on from this point at some point in order to start working together again and coming up with better solutions, because changing that one isn't going to happen.
Hayden, it's your hand up, and then I'll make a comment.
All for supporting the change and moving forwards. And yeah, think just acknowledgement there. Maybe it's a discussion with Dr. Shanker on it, just to say we've been a year. Where are we now? And if that discussion could happen, because I don't think we've had one of those yet. I look at it and go, hey, we're still having outbreaks on farms, even though the Section 22 order's in place. And
Hayden, he's
yep.
not going to change his mind. I can't, this talking, even Brett dropping the appeal, I'm going to go out and meet with Brett and Jason this week to continue to drill Shanker. I'm telling you, I talk to the man a couple times a day. You guys have drilled him around and around and around and around over the last year. His job is to protect vulnerable populations under the Health Protection and Promotion Act. He has a divisional court ruling that has supported it. And yes, we had an outbreak at Schuyler's Farm, but at the same time, look at some of the other regions. And, Windsor Essex ended up in the 30s with their number of outbreaks. And we did pretty well here in Norfolk County that we only had 2 on farm. We did have another couple individuals, but it was very easy to remove them from, that quarantine piece and move on. But at the end of the day, at some point, there has to be an acceptance, that he's not going to change his mind.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I've got that acceptance. Just closure for the Ag Advisory Board is all I'm going for on that one.
Yeah. And regardless, and if with the understanding that the money is not there, and because one thing that I am concerned about, because after speaking with my father and other people, is that if I wasn't back on the farm, this is not Section 22 related. This is strictly the cost of what's coming through for updating and what is going to be expected for private, small, medium to large size farms to build a new bunkhouse, or what it looks like with whatever that looks like, and having to do it now, seemingly with a crystal ball until everything is actually official. There's something to consider above and beyond the economic impact, is also the fact that there'll be a reduction in the amount of farmers and operations that will be able to continue. Just based on the fact that if I was in the farm, my dad at 60 years old is not going to be putting up another $1 million building. Right. Yes. So yeah, and that's just the reality of the situation. I just want to and we are in a weird flux, and we're all aware of the 1% of farmers that feed the 99% of people, and it's gonna be reality not just in Norfolk, but around the country as well. I didn't want this to actually, you know what? Yeah, Miss Mayor.
Thanks, Dusty. Listen, I just want to say this. If we were to put our heads together, and you guys, for the vigor, to your credit, you were, whether we agree or disagree on it, but the ag community put their heads together. You guys raised money, you filed an appeal, you went to the tribunal, you did all these things. If we put our heads together and we work together, instead of fighting this Section 22 order that we can't change because a judge has now ruled on it, and you guys fought the same way with us together to say to the province, listen, this is a food program for all Ontarians, everybody. This isn't just for Norfolk County. And if you guys don't provide us the funding and so on, you are going to see decreased food production. That was the whole premise of this to begin with. That is why this fight, we should be doing it together, not internally. Give up on the Shanker piece, and let's start hitting the province and the feds together. And there's a million things that they could do, what I've been trying to pitch even in the phone call with the feds as well. It's not just even, maybe they don't want to keep handing out more checks and so on, but there's other things that they can do, accelerated depreciation on your income taxes and so on and so forth, right? There are other mechanisms that they could do to bonus you guys for being able to do these conversions on the facilities, besides just straight cutting a check to build a new bunkhouse. That can help you out immensely. But again, that's where, that's not Norfolk County to change it. And by continuing to drill on Shanker, you're taking away from the fight that we should be having with the province right now.
No, that's fair. I see Hayden and actually, if I go to Trish first.
Sure. I was just going to say, I echo that, Dusty. I've had a lot of farmers kind of calling just because I was the one that sent out some of this information. And they're in the later years and they don't see how they can do this and how it makes sense. And I agree. I mean, we're not getting anywhere on the Section 22. So we need to figure out what are the solutions going forward. And again, that's why I've been pushing for the survey to get the information so that we can find some common ground as to what will help, and then we can work together to push for it.
Correct. And this is because this is obviously it's global, it's across the country. I myself, and now I am again one vote and one person. But this is a solution that we need for all, and the Norfolk County farmer is what is our priority. And it's something that I am willing to do and look forward to working alongside council, and while maintaining the integrity and making sure everybody's safe, but it's also being practical, and alongside if a quarantine plan, and long story short, what I'd like to say is, with direction of this board, I'd like to begin the talks and working through for letters of support, getting them through OFA, getting them from NFA and the other associations within Norfolk to get that template. So maybe we can have a BC program in line, because they went through 1 year of it. So if there is any sort of cross that we can join with them, I am that has my vote right now, and I'll put that out right now.
You know, the other thing you guys need to advocate for as well is, you know, look at the situation with, you know, not just Scott Lynn, but with Brett here, and having to go and find hotel rooms to go and isolate these guys at a huge cost, right? One of the other things the province really needs to do is, you know, you can't expect, especially as, you know, if this goes on next year, as people start traveling more, you know, you don't know how many hotel rooms are available and so on. What the province really needs to do is they need to keep a bank of hotels somewhere that are available for the outbreaks in the season, so that when a farmer does have an outbreak, that regardless of what municipality they are in, that the province is managing that outbreak program. So the farmer and, you know, the guys go to that hotel. And that's a little bit, you know, it's a big part of the workers themselves. You know, in the case of Scott Lynn, everybody got tested. But in some of the other farms, when we went in and we offered to do testing, you know, only a few guys would, you know, some of the farmers wanted it, some didn't. Some of the guys would want to do it, some didn't. And a big part of that, I think, is, you know, when you don't know, well, what happens if you do test positive? What's the plan there, right? What's the plan in place? And is this going to be a big cost then if the guys do end up testing positive and so on? So if you had it already set up from the province where, you know, they've got, wherever that may be, they've got blocks of hotel rooms reserved to manage on-farm outbreaks. And I think that is really critical next season.
Hayden, your hand was up.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Could I phrase this a little differently? Because I think I'm coming across the wrong way. I fully support that we're closing this off here with the ask on the Section 22. Could I ask that if you see an opportunity for us to work together as individuals and help out with something, or as a group, as the Ag Advisory Board, that there's always an opportunity to reach out. My phone's on me all the time. Give me a call if you see a way that we should be, I guess you could call it posturing differently, asking different questions, providing support on any way, shape, or form for different means to be able to deal with the COVID-19 situation and the regulations around it. So I'm not off the same. I'm not on a different page to you, Madam Mayor. Fully support the fact that we need to move on. And behind the scenes, we've got a lot of industry people that are working for us to try and get some answers for industry and support agriculture. And I think we just need to continue to have conversations, and some of the conversations we might not always like to have. So apologize if I'm coming off wrong on that. It's more so just to get closure on those motions and then say, let's move on. And for sure, anytime I think as myself as an individual, I can put this out there. Anytime that you see a role for me to play, please don't be afraid to reach out or have somebody else reach out to me.
Sounds good. Thanks, Hayden.
I second that those comments completely as well. Ms. Fournier?
Me as well. I mean, if I can be of help, please reach out. What I was going to suggest is maybe we get in touch with the OFA and to see how the BC model ran. What were the what worked, what didn't work, what suggestions, what are they changing? And maybe then we can, go with a solution to the province as to how this might work. I think the issue, though, is probably that the BC model is a whole lot smaller than what we would have here in Ontario. But I mean, at least it's a place to start. They might be the best way to get that information.
100%. I can reach out to Will Stoneman because I know that he was very interested in joining these board meetings because, I know there's an invite continually extended to the OFA. So alongside speaking with Nick Kinkle about a flurry of things and also inviting him as well, I can reach out to Will to see if they have any of the documents or any of the programs from BC or if they can get them. That's a good point, Chris. I'll do that. Jacob, add it to my list, please. I don't need more. I'm just joking. I can write it down. Okay, Will Stoneman. Okay. I can also try to gain that through the Berry Working Group with the Canadian Horticultural Council because the president of that Berry Working Group is one of the BC blueberry pack houses. So that might be a quick one as well. Okay. All right. Beautiful. Any other comments on this, on a new business or business arising or on the issue at hand that we're talking about? Okay. So let's leave that. We have a lot of things now to follow ups before we return. But let's try to sign these off as quickly as possible because that way, if there's any way to get either responses back from Toby, responses from BC, for whether it's Toby on lot swapping, Toby on this, Ernie on this as well. Trish, when are the feds closing the input for information? Because I know there's a 22nd of December.
Yeah. Okay. So we do have a lot of work to do, once we get that. Because I mean, ultimately, they're the ones making the decision on what rules they're going to put in place and what the timeline is for that, and probably funding as well.
Yeah.
But that's our immediate issue. That's one issue that has to go in. But we also have, this is a kind of a secondary issue. Our immediate issue is how do we make next year work as best as possible, right? So the isolation is definitely part of that.
Yeah. I think what we're gonna I know after speaking with other farmers and us here at our farm, what we're going to be dealing with is obviously having a rotation of quarantine and then contraction, expanding and contracting like that. And unfortunately, obviously, we're all aware that flights are not just like flying down. I'm going to fly to Mexico this week, or no, I don't get vacation until next week. So that is going to be interesting. So we'll have to see what that looks like. So I think, getting what the BC model looks like is going to be huge. Trish?
The other issue is asparagus growers, right? With the workers coming in early. And I mean, it's a number of them that have been reaching out, and they don't even know how to make this work because, they don't have winter facilities. They don't know where to get hotels. They don't know how to manage that from a distance, and they don't have the time to bring some in early for this 3-week period. So they're a bit between a rock and a hard place. And a number of them are just like, okay, this is what we can manage on the farm, so we're just not going to grow that asparagus anymore. Right out, that they don't have a choice.
Is there something against the bylaw that says I could use my bunkhouse? Let's say I don't get guys until June, but asparagus guy gets his men up in March 1st. For all of that, there's some sort of like a rental system, but it doesn't turn into, because we don't want the bunkhouses. Well, we've gone through that. Bunkhouses turning into Airbnbs and all of that. But is that a model that would be potentially available?
Potentially. And I mean, it would help out those of you that have these added costs as well, that maybe you can get a little bit of income in, particularly if there's a program to help them isolate, cover the costs. Then at least that money's going back into our own farming community than going to some hotel somewhere.
Yeah. I wonder that, even if it is just for the 2-week quarantine period, and then once that's done, then they're able to go back into their larger pods.
And I know that there's a lot of farmers that are talking about maybe potentially working together on these new builds that are going to happen. What if they can create an area, and so that they're sharing that? Now, I don't know what all the specifications are on farms anymore, just because I haven't been in that for a lot of years, because it used to be that they had to be on your farm, right, or a designated area. So, but maybe they're willing to open that up a little bit more, especially with this move to, workers moving freely and having visitors and everything else. I think we're going to have to think outside the box, right? If farmers can work together and create this more of a complex type dorm, type housing, maybe the costs will be less and it'll be more efficient.
Yeah.
That's a little bit the one of the challenges right now, right? Is for these guys that are starting to build even right now, or even people that are using, the program from the province and getting, 50 cents on the dollar for your retrofits. What are you retrofitting to? Like what are the new builds? What are you building to? It's just a guessing game at this point, right? Like if you build something brand spanking new and it's completed tomorrow, the feds could still come out the day after with rules that render your day old facility obsolete. That's the part that scares me, and why they need to move faster with deciding, and they need not just one plan. These are the new standards. They need a full sweep from, okay, new builds will be built to this, but we're going to give you so many years to make those changes on all the rest of the facilities. But, I feel for the guys that are building, like there's a couple bunkhouses going up right now, and it's just like, kind of nail biting, thinking, is this even going to work?
Yeah. Personally, we're all the designing that we're getting done. We're speaking with people in Leamington that are in roughly the same situation, and also basing the modeling, both combining what the potential, what the Fed sent out, combined with what a dormitory looks like at a college.
Well, I think one of the things I'll caution you is stuff that the Fed sent out. Like the Fed still had, what was it, 10 guys to a toilet or something?
No, 5.
Five guys to a toilet.
5 guys.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was one of the things that came up in the phone call. And, at the end of the day, it's not about the number of guys per toilet. It's about the number of guys per bathroom, right? Bathrooms and kitchens are where there is the highest risk of spread. Bathrooms in particular. And so, by still having, let's say you have 5 guys to a toilet, but you have 5 toilets and you're 25 guys going into the bathroom, it's that passing in the doorway, that. And so I don't think that will be what ends up being rolled out from the feds. I do foresee a change there. I think that was just a first iteration. I think that, like the best idea when you look at how college dorms have even evolved over the years, right? No longer do you see the bathroom blocks there. And I think Western, it's like 4 people to a bathroom, 4 rooms to a bathroom. And then there's like 2 pods. So it's like 8 that.
Mhm.
Now, can you, hopefully, is it going to be higher for you guys? Sure. But that's what I'm just cautioning you about, is that I think that those rules and the way they were done, I'm not so sure that they're going to stand. I think that was kind of a rough draft with not a lot of input that went into that. And, one of the things that they said to me on the phone call, they said, well, we're looking at, one of the things they've used as a basis was the rules that they used for the oil camps out west. And they were last done some years ago, but they don't have complaints out there really with the camp workers and stuff anymore. But what happened in the oil camps out west years ago, when oil was at its peak, and guys were literally like walking off of one job, walking across the street to take a $2 or $3 raise, right? And they couldn't keep workers out there. And so what they started to do, some of these bigger companies, and everybody followed suit, is they started to change their living accommodations, and they started to build more hotel-like setups where guys had all their own space, their own bathroom, their own whatever. And that became sort of the retaining piece for those employees. So in that case, it wasn't the regulations that drove change in an industry. It was actually, worker supply that drove those changes. So I think that, I think that those rules, I think there's a little bit of, as there often is, from a disconnect from the government to what's actually going on the ground. And I don't think that those rules really serve much out there, because the places are all far above those standards naturally on their own.
Okay. Okay.
I think one of the things, as if you guys are looking at building, Shanker and I, there was a conversation with Paul, and it, be able to justify it. So, given that you're building kind of blind right now, make it defensible in the sense that, you could have 5 people in a house that are sharing a bathroom, a single bathroom. So that's perfectly normal, right? Anybody would be expected to do that. There's not generally 20 people in a house or 10 people in a house, but easily you could say 5 people. When you look at the work pods that you guys are on, so maybe your work pods in the field it's 10 guys are together all the time, so if they're together all day long, day in and day out in the field, then maybe, 10 people living together, 10 people sharing a kitchen is, acceptable. The difference between having maybe, 5 guys to a bathroom and 10 guys, or 12 guys or whatever to a kitchen, the kitchen, obviously people aren't generally like blowing their nose and all the same kind of things that they would in a bathroom on their own. Again, I'm not saying that that's coming, this is why we kept stressing to them, there needs to be time. This is not a 1-year solution. This is a long-term plan. But if they do set standards for new builds, or if you're looking at building right now and there's no rules out there for you to build to other than these old standards, that's how I would be thinking about it, because I think that's how those guys are thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. I'm going to continue to apply pressure to find when the next meeting is through OMAFRA for information input and intake. And I'll update the board subsequently, because I know we're all interested in this, and I'll update council as well. Any other discussion on this or any other new business? Okay, if I can, on that note, again, thank you everyone for joining here this morning. Happy Monday. I hope everybody enjoys the weather. So I guess what I'm told is supposed to warm up there this week, so that's great. Mr. Dooney?
Sorry, just a note to thank Trish for the work that she put into that, creating that survey as well. I've completed it. If anybody hasn't completed it, take the time to make sure you put your thoughts down on that. Thanks, Trish.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trish. And I do appreciate Madam Mayor and Councillor Columbus being here, as well as Mr. Garwood. Jacob, thanks for getting everything out. Looks like we'll be talking over this week about a flurry of things, and that's great. We'll clean some stuff up and get some results back, and we will go from there. Jacob, if you want to, let's work. I'd like to make sure all of the updates to make sure that all the asks that we're asking for, both of the mayor, council, myself, and others, can be tracked, and to make sure I don't want anything to be forgotten, because they were all good points that we like that information for.
I've got bridge, trees, and septic on my list. Is that
Beautiful.
right? Okay.
Bridge, trees, and septic. That's correct.
Perfect.
Yep. I have bylaw, follow up with Toby, and I'm not going to start my annual report yet. And then to also reach out to OFA and BC to find out if we can get a hand on what their BC provincial program looks like.
You and I also have a date, Dusty.
Fantastic. Good deal.
A mandate.
Bills don't play Giants this Sunday, do they? No, they play. No. Anyways, okay. On that note, if I can get a motion. Oh, Hayden, your hand's up, sir.
Sorry, had it up from before.
Okay. Oh, good. Again, I appreciate everyone. Have a great week. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
Anita, I move to adjourn.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anita.
Just have a question though, Dusty, about next meeting date.
Yes. So
Before we go, because there are a couple of things that are time sensitive, I would think.
Yep. All right. Okay. Let me just pull up this calendar here because this one sucks.
Let's go. So, Dusty, could we ask Mr. Garwood as well? Chris, when the new people coming on board here for the Ag Advisory Board, sorry, when does that happen as well? Is that something we need a time for the new people coming into the Ag Advisory Board, or is that a ways off yet?
That's usually done in January. So we would take the report to council in December. No, in January, and then the terms of reference said that they would start in January.
Okay. So 1 week, 2 week. That December 4, there's a council meeting on December Tuesday the 15th. So if we plan to have our meeting on either that prior 11th, the Friday, maybe an option for the Thursday the 10th, Friday 11th, or Monday the 14th. How is everybody feeling about that?
The 11th works best for me. I have conflicts on the other days.
Okay. So Jacob, send out a doodle poll, please, for those 3 dates. Is there any other dates that, because we want to get in, but also want to give us time to put a lot of this stuff together before our meeting. So if we go 10, 11, 14, knowing that now Trish, Friday, day or evening?
During the day on a Friday would probably be best. Otherwise, you might run into problems with everyone's schedule.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So yeah, if we could send out the doodle poll for those 3 options, Jacob, that'd be great.
I can do the Monday in the evening. It's just we have our insert meeting on the Thursday night.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So then, honestly, realistically, let's just do the Friday the 11th or the 14th. Let's just those two days as options. And Councilor Columbus, can you make either of those dates, sir?
Yes, I'm available.
Okay, thank you. Beautiful. Okay, and then we will go from there. All right, well, thank you everyone again. I appreciate everyone's attendance and input. And until then, see you soon.
Thanks, Dusty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hayden, are you still there?